Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the 11th week of the live interactive sessions for sustainable transportation systems. I'm Seri Vinayagam, a PhD scholar in the Civil Engineering Department at IIT Madras. Okay, so we'll start with an overview of the lectures for week 11. Okay, so the first lecture of week 11 was a case study, right? It was a case study on It was a case study on the MRTS. So MRTS stands for the Mass Rapid Transportation System, right? So the metro rail comes under the Mass Rapid Transportation System category, right? So we looked at one specific example of this MRTS, which is the DMRC, or the Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, right? So DMRC, right? So we know this Delhi Metro is the largest metro rail system in India, right? It has over 350 plus kilometers of network length. Right? It has over 250 plus stations, right? And also has an average daily passenger or ridership of more than 2.5 million passengers, right? So it's one of the largest operations of the metro system in the country, right? So this was a case study on this particular DMRC facility, right? So we looked at what are the different passenger friendly facilities that are available and provided by the DMRC, and also some of the green initiatives, right? So with regarding to the sustainability aspects, right? So several practices have been followed in the DMRC that makes it one of the carbon neutral metro rail systems in the world, right? So that was in lecture number 1. So in the second lecture we were looking at another case study. So this was a case study on airports, right? So case study on sustainable airports. Right. So why we looked at why sustainability or why sustainable airports are needed, right? So because these airports have a significant environmental impact, right? So these impacts include the different air water, as well as noise pollution, among others, right? So their effects are very significant. So that's why the sustainable airports are very important. So then we looked at what are the different rating systems, right? So when we say one, how do we compare different airports based on the sustainability? So we have several sustainability rating systems available, right? So we looked at different systems such as the LEED system and the BREEAM system, and also we looked at several best practice examples from around the world, right? So different airports and what best practices are being followed on those. So those were covered in the second lecture. And then in the third lecture, we were looking at a case study on water transport, right? So we were covering different modes. So the third one was on water transport, right? So the concept of sustainable water transportation, right? So why again in water transport? So it is responsible for air and water pollution, right? So you would have heard cases on like oil spills, right? So affecting the maritime environment, right? So those things, also there will be emission issues, because of the burning of the fuel and so on. So that's why the sustainable water transport is also important. So then we were introduced to the concept of green shipping, right? So this concept called green shipping was introduced. So what is that? So it is basically to reduce the impact of this water transport on environment, right? So like reducing the emissions, reducing the energy requirement, and so on, right? So basically moving towards a sustainable maritime transportation, right? So that was in lecture number 3. And the fourth lecture, again it was a case study. At this time it was on non-motorized transport, right? So NMT stands for non-motorized transport. So we looked at what are the different challenges that are that the NMT faces, right? So like lack of adequate infrastructure, the safety issues, and so on. And also why it is important to focus on NMT, because improvement in NMT will lead to a lot of benefits, right? So benefits in health, right? So health and safety. So there'll be benefits in mobility as well. So mobility will improve, right? So congestion will go down, right, when people prefer NMTs and so on. So there are a lot of benefits associated with this. So it's very important to promote the non-motorized transport modes, right? So and also we looked at one example of the city of Copenhagen in Denmark, right? So which as a success story, right? So in Copenhagen, so where we saw that like more than 50% of the mode share, right? 50% mode share was with NMTs, right? So this was for intercity work and education travel. So you see, this is a very high and significant percentage, right? So more than 50% of the trips are being conducted with bicycles, right? So this is a very significant number, and this is a model that model for other cities and countries to follow, right? So in the final lecture, so final lecture was not a case study. Here we were looking at the tools, different tools that are available, tools for conducting LCA, right? So if you recall, LCA stands for the life cycle assessment, right? So we have covered this in the previous weeks, right? So here we are looking at what are the software tools that are there, that can help us do this life cycle assessment, right? So and in particular, we are looking at different tools, and one particular tool called the OpenLCA, right? This is an open source and a free software tool, right? So it's features, how to set it up, and how to use it. All those were covered, and also the basic concepts from the previous lectures, like right, the definitions, what are the different system boundaries, right, and the different stages or phases in the LCA. So all those were also covered in the lecture number 5. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to questions. So the first question for week 11 is the significant environmental impacts of airports include. Options are noise emissions, land use change, emissions from de-icing, and all of these. So we have one more for option D. Any other answers? Alright. So the right option is option D. It is all of these. Right. So here we are talking about environmental impacts from airports. Right. So basically, the airports include like the vehicles as well. Right. So the air transportation in particular. So in that case, so noise emission is one of the impacts, right? So this is very obvious. So aircrafts create noise. So in the nearby locality, so noise pollution is one of the factors that affect the environment. So land use change is also an impact from airports, right? So because it occupies a large area of land, so it is converted. So we convert a piece of land. So the land use change is also is also very significant when it comes to airports. Then emissions from de-icing. This is also a significant impact. So what is this de-icing? So de-icing is basically so this happens when the wings of the aircrafts are covered with snow and ice, right? So that's when we go for this process of de-icing. So when it is covered with ice, so it will affect the flight of the aircraft, right? So for safety concerns, so this ice has to be removed before the flight takes off. So to do that, some chemicals, de-icing chemicals are used, right? So to remove the ice, right? But these chemicals are not really environmental friendly, right? So they emit the greenhouse gases and other toxic chemicals. So that is a concern, right? So the emissions from this de-icing process is a significant environmental impact. So all the options A, B, and C are impacts created by airports and aircrafts. So therefore, option D, all of these is the right answer. Okay, moving on to question number 2. Is Dash is the first carbon neutral tagged airport in the Asia Pacific region. Okay, so the options are Indira Gandhi International Airport, Hong Kong International Airport, Singapore International Airport, and Taipei International Airport. There is one more for A, Indira Gandhi International Airport. Any other answers? Okay. So the right answer is option A. It is Indira Gandhi International Airport. Right. So this status of carbon neutral tag was given to this airport in 2018. Right. So that was the first time an airport in the Asia Pacific region got this carbon neutral status. Right. So we know IGI airport. So this is in Delhi, right? So what is this carbon neutral tag? So basically it means that that means there is net zero, GHGs or in particular carbon emissions, right? So net zero in total. This airport does not add any more carbon emissions, into the atmosphere, right? So we look at, so that does not mean there is zero carbon emissions, right? So but we look at carbon emissions and also offsets from different activities, right? So from the case study you may remember, so there are several initiatives that were taken, in this sorry, in the second lecture, we looked at IGA as one of the examples. So we looked at several initiatives that were taken with respect to sustainability, right? So how the waste management is being conducted, how the energy reduction is conducted, and so on, how renewable resources like solar energy are being utilized, right? And so all these contribute to carbon emission reductions, right? So if you look at all these offsets and also the emissions that are generated from different processes in total, if we look at it, so the emission offsets, if they are greater than the emissions that are generated, so then we call it as net zero, right? So that means it is carbon neutral. It's not generating more emissions than it is reducing with the other activities, right? So therefore this airport was the first one that got this status. Question number 3 is, the National Waterway 2 is located on Dash River. The options are Ganga, Mahanadi, Godavari, and Brahmaputra. Shoaib, do you have a question? Yeah. So you can answer in the poll. So we have a poll after every question. So your answer, you can put it in the poll.
Is it going?
Okay, so we'll see. We'll wait for other answers as well. So yeah, one answer is Ganga, one for the Brahmaputra. Any other answers? All right. So right answer is option D. It is Brahmaputra. So National Waterway 2 is on the Brahmaputra River, right? So this is located in the northeastern region, right? And in Assam. So this NW2 is in the Brahmaputra River. So it has a length of over 890 plus kilometers, right? It's one of the longest inland waterways in the country, right? So mainly it's very important for the freight transportation, right? So for the movement of goods, on businesses. So this is a very important waterway in the northeastern region, right? So the right answer is Brahmaputra. Okay, question number 4 is traffic fatalities tend to dash as the share of non-motorized travel dash. So, right, so we have to identify the trend between the traffic fatalities and the share of non-motorized travel. So the options are decline and decreases, increase and decreases, decline and increases, and increase and increases. Okay, so we have one vote for B. Any other answers? Okay, one more for A. Okay, so the right answer is actually there are two answers that are correct. So here I have given one as C, but B is also a correct answer, right? So which is basically the opposite of what C says, right? So C says that decline and increases, right? So traffic fatalities tend to decline as the share of non-motorized travel increases, right? So here we have an illustration of this. So on the y-axis we have traffic fatalities, right? And on the x-axis we have the percentage of trips by the non-motorized modes, right? So the mode share for NMTs. So what we are seeing a trend that is negative, right? So which means that as the non-motorized trip increases, the share of the non-motorized trip increases, right? So we see that traffic fatalities come down, right? So and we are seeing this is not just a trend from one particular instance or one particular location. So this is from a lot of countries, right? So this is a trend that we observe internationally, right? So not from just one location or one condition, right? So this is more or less an universal condition where we are seeing more and more non-motorized trips will lead to fewer traffic fatalities, right? So C is describing that trend. B is basically saying that in the reverse manner, right? So if the non-motorized trip share decreases, then your traffic fatalities will increase, right? So that is also correct. So basically saying it in the opposite way. So both B and C are essentially saying the same thing, and therefore they are correct, right? Question number 5 is which of the following is not a tool for life cycle assessment? So the options are Gabi, Simapro, Umberto, and Calais. Okay, we have one more for A and one for D. Any other answers? Alright, so the right answer is option D. It is Galine. So if you remember from the previous lecture, previous week, when we were looking at air pollution in particular, then we looked at different models for modeling the dispersion of emissions, right? So there we were looking at the Galine, right? So it's a model or a tool for dispersion of emissions, right? So it's a model that is used for this modeling the dispersion. So whereas the first three are LCA tools, right? So they are useful for LCA, and this was introduced in this particular week, right? So Caline was discussed from previous weeks when we are looking at air pollution. So therefore, that is not the tool for LCA, right? So therefore, D is the right answer. Question 6 is, which of the following factors does not determine the success of a metro project? So options are high population density, scattered settlements along the route, positive behavior towards public transport, and availability of last mile connectivity. We have one for B. Any other answers? Okay, two votes for B. Right. So the right answer is option B, scattered settlements along the route. Right. So here we are talking about success of a metro project, right? So which means what is the success of a metro project when the ridership of the metro system is high, right? So when more people use the metro system, right? So rather than using their own vehicles, so then we call the metro system to be successful, right? So here, which of the factors does not determine the success, right? Which means that which do not lead to high metro ridership, right? So high population density. So this is one of the factors that is needed for a successful metro system, right? So when the metro goes through high density regions, right? So which means that more people from that region will use it, right? So it is useful for a lot of people, right? So therefore, more and more people will prefer the metro system when it is going through this high population density regions. So scattered settlement along the road is basically the opposite of it, right? So the population density is not very high, along the route, right? So if you look at the previous weeks where we discussed about the transit oriented development, right? One of the factors that we take into consideration when we are designing is the walkability aspects and the floor area ratios, right? Right. So near or along the route, the floor area ratio will be very high, right? So which means that the density is much higher, and as we go away from this transit corridor, the floor area ratio will go down, right? So which means the settlements will be more scattered as we are going away from it, right? So but if it is scattered along the route, which means that it is not many people are have accessibility to the system, right? So they have to come from far away if they have to use the system, right? So that is not really helpful for the people, right? So therefore B will actually not increase the ridership of the metro system. Okay, so that is the factor. If you look at the other two, so the positive behavior to a public transport is required, right? So people have to, see the public transport or behave positively, which means that they should prefer it, right? So they should understand that using the public transport has a lot of environmental benefits, right? So therefore, this positive behavior, like people's attitude, is also very important for the success of a metro project. And finally, the availability of last mile connectivity, right? So again, as I said, for the people who are not within the walking distance, right? So if it is like 5 minute or 10 minute walk, if their home location or their destination is within that radius, then people can directly walk. But if it is outside of this radius, then we have to provide the last mile connectivity, right? So which is once they get down from the metro, so they have to reach the destination. So for that, shuttle services, bus services, or this shared cabs or autos, so those must be available so that people can reach their destination. So if that is available, so people will again be encouraged to take the metro system, right? So this availability of last mile connectivity is also important. So among these, only B is the factor that does not contribute to the success of the metro system, right? So therefore, the right option is B. Question number 7 is dash is known as the city of cyclists. The options are Oslo, Lisbon, Copenhagen, and Berlin. Okay, so that is one answer as C, one as D. Any other answers? Okay, so you have one vote for C, one vote for B. So the right answer is option C. It is Copenhagen. Right? So we discussed this in the fourth lecture, right? So that was the case study on non-motorized transport, right? So Copenhagen, a city in Denmark, right? So this city is also called the city of cyclists. Why? Because the right, so the facilities are there for cyclists and the mode share for the cyclists, as I was mentioning earlier, it is more than 50%, right? So for intra-city work trips or education trips, right? Which means the trips which are made within the city, right? So also even intercity trips also there are significant proportion who use bicycles, right? So overall, if you look at for all the purposes, still it is 30 plus percentage for all trips, right? So this is a very significant number. So this comes from a lot of factors contribute this, right? So this is the trend that we are seeing, for a few years, right? So for several years now, right? So this higher mode share for NMTs, because there are very good facilities that are there for the cyclists, right? So the infrastructure, we need to give lanes for cycles, right? So that has to be there, and also. Uh, the people's attitude also plays a major role, right? So all this factors contribute to this numbers that we are seeing here, right? So therefore this place is called the city of cyclists. So question number 8 is, which of the following is not a benefit of NMT, that is non-motorized transport? So the options are safety and health, recreation, near zero emissions, and high speed connectivity. Here we have two votes for B. In their answers. Okay, so the right answer is option D. It is high speed connectivity. Right, so NMTs has a lot of benefits, right? So as we have already discussed, so safety and health is one of the benefit, right? So we already saw how the safety improves, right, as the share of the NMTs increase, right? So fatalities come down, right? So that is the safety aspect of it. So health, it also has health benefits, right? So when you walk, cycle, so there is a health benefit associated with it, right? So safety and health is definitely a benefit that we get from using NMTs. Recreation, yes, right. So people use NFTs, for recreational trips as well, right? So walking, cycling, so that also is used for recreational purposes or gives you that recreational feelings. So B is also one of the benefits. Near zero emissions, yes, right? So we do not because we it is as the name suggests, it is non-motorized, right? So there is almost zero emissions. So we are calling near zero because there to use the infrastructure that we are using, or the vehicles that we will use. So to produce that, there will be some emissions, right? But we look at the whole life cycle of it, right? So during the operational cycle, there is no emissions. But if you look at the whole life cycle, there will be some emission, right? So, but overall it is near zero, right? So that is also one of the benefits. So high speed connectivity is not provided by the NMT, right? So because these are non-motorized, so the speed is very slow, right? So you cannot walk faster than going by a bike or a car, right? So you will not have high speed connectivity, right? So when you want to go from A to B, using NMTs will not be faster, but there are the other benefits that we will get. But high speed connectivity is not one of them, right? So therefore, D is the right answer. Okay, question number 9 is, in water transport system, ballast water can have microorganisms which can be released into the water and cause irreversible damage to the ecosystem. Right? So we have to say whether the statement is true or false. Okay, one vote for A, one for B. Any other answers? Okay, so the right answer is option A, that the given statement is correct. Okay, so what does it say? It says that ballast water, right? So due to some reason that is given here, causes irreversible damage to the ecosystem, right? So what is the reason? The reason is that it has microorganisms which can be released into the water, right? So that is what is causing this damage to the ecosystem. So this is correct, right? So we need to understand what this ballast water is and how is this, process happening, right? So consider two ports, right? So A and B, right? So and the ship travels between these two ports, right? So it is going to pick up, right? So empty ship, let us say, goes to pick up, and then loaded ship comes back. Okay, some trade is happening, right? So it a ship goes from A to B, right? So it goes empty, picks up some goods from port B, and then comes back to A, right? So if you look at it, when it is going, it is empty, right? So whereas when it is coming back, it is loaded. So when it is going empty, right? So to improve the maneuverability and the stability of the vehicle, so what they do is they will add ballast water, right? So there will be tanks on the ship, right? So that are called ballast tanks. So the water is taken from the origin port, right? So when the ship is empty, right? So to make sure the ship travels stable, right? So when it is going to port B, right? So when it is picking up the ballast water, so all the microorganisms and all the bacteria, the fungus and all the viruses or whatever is there in the water that is on port A, so those will also be taken together, right? So in the ballast water it will be there, and when it goes to port B, so this is a different location. So right, so the local ecosystem there in the water it is different, right? So, but because when the ship is loaded there with cargo, right? So now because there is already the weight added, so this ballast water will be removed. In port B, this ballast water will be emptied from the ship, right? So what happens? All the microorganisms that were present in this local environment of A is now added to the environment of B, which is not native there, right? So it is introduced into a foreign environment, and therefore it will cause damage to that environment there, right? So that is why this ballast water is causing this effect, right? So when it comes back loaded, it will not have this ballast water. So there is a this transfer of water from this location to another location. So and the microorganisms that are there are being transferred to an environment that is not native to them, right? So that will cause damage in the ecosystem, right? So therefore the given statement is correct that it will damage the ecosystem because of this transfer of this ballast water. Okay, question number 10 is, which of the following is not a sustainability rating system used for airports? The options are BRIAM, LEED, Panache, and Envision. Okay, we have one more for B, one for D. Okay, your answers. Okay, so the right answer is option C. It is Panache, right? So we looked at different or several sustainability rating systems, right? So as part of the case study on airports, right? So BRIAM, LEED, and Envision. So these were covered in the lecture. So many others were listed. So these three were also part of that. So Panache is not a sustainability rating system, right? So LEED is the popular one, the most popular one. So developed by the US Green Building Council, right? It has a 4-tier certification system. So BREEAM is developed in the UK, right? So by the Building Research Establishment. So Envision, this is also developed in the UK by multiple organizations, right? So these are some of the sustainability rating systems that we have. So Panache is not one of them, right? So the right option is C. That C is not the right one. Okay, question number 11. is which of the following does not directly impact metros when compared to automobiles? The options are fuel savings, reduction in air pollution, increased congestion on streets, and reduced accidents on streets. Maybe I want for D. Any other answers? Okay. One more for B. Right. So the right option is option C. It is increased congestion on the streets. Right. So here the question is which of these does not affect. Right. So which does not directly affect the metro system. Right. So which has no connection. Right. So that's what we are looking for. So option A is fuel saving. So fuel saving. So it will affect metro. Right. So by higher fuel savings. So metro's operation will be more efficient when there is higher fuel saving, right? So therefore, fuel saving affects metro operations. Reduction in air pollution. So reduction in air pollution is also a factor that will affect metro, right? So if you are, going for more renewable sources, right? So for not just for the operation of the vehicle, for all the facilities and the infrastructure, right? So when we go for that, so the overall emissions will reduce, right? So the reduction in air pollution will occur. So this has an impact on metros, right? So the sustainability aspect when you consider have to consider the whole operation, right? So reduction in air pollution is one factor that will also directly impact the metro. And D says reduced accidents on the streets. So reduced accidents on the streets will have an impact on the automobile travel, right? So because metro is uh, having a separate right of way, right? So it is the reduced accidents on the street is not going to impact the metro operation, right? So if you have higher accidents or lower accidents, so that is going to affect the automobile travel, right? So but it is not going to affect the metro travel. Similarly, increased congestion on the street, right? So this is also not going to affect the metro operations, right? Because metros have a separate right of way, right? So it is not going to mix with the street traffic, right? So if there is a higher congestion or lower congestion, metro will still travel on its tracks, right? So its travel time is not going to be affected, right? So there is no direct impact on the metro because of the increased congestion on the streets or reduced accidents on the street. So we can say that C as well as D. So as we had in the previous case, so here also these two options apply for this particular question, right? So because it has nothing, metro has separate right of way, so the activities on the street is not going to directly impact the metro operations, right? So therefore, C, I gave it a C, but D is also a right answer. So C and D are correct. Question 12 is, which of the following options is being used to make the metro system more environmentally friendly and sustainable? So options are congestion pricing, clean development mechanism, sky sail system, and prohibited left or right turn. Okay, we have one more for B, one for C. Any other answers? Okay. So the right option is option B. It is clean development mechanism. Okay, so here we are talking about the metro system again, right? So which makes it more environmentally friendly and sustainable, right? So if you look at each of these options, so the first one, congestion pricing and prohibited left or right turning, is not applicable for the metro system, right? So we saw these, as strategies that come under the traffic management, right? So among the different strategies for that comes under the traffic management system, right? So this congestion pricing and prohibited right or left turning comes under that, right? So it's applicable for the traffic on the streets, right? So where in congestion pricing we try to reduce the travel towards the the CBDs during the peak hours, right? So or on a particular corridor which is heavily congested, right? So on the prohibited right left turning, so at intersections we try to at congested intersections are managed by prohibiting this left and right turn, so that people use other intersections which are less congested or has high capacity to handle the traffic to make these turning movements, right? So therefore, these are not applicable for the metro system, right? So these are strategies implemented on the street for the traffic on the road, right? So therefore, those two are ruled out. So similarly, C is also ruled out because SkySail system is for water transportation, right? So this is one of the upcoming technologies we can say, right, to improve the efficiency of water transport. So where this sky sail is a particular is basically a sail, which means it uses the power of the wind to power the vehicle forward, to propel the vehicle, right? So it uses the wind energy to propel the vehicle. So the sky sail is an efficient form of the conventional sail that we have, right? So it uses or it produces more power than the conventional sail. So it is applicable for the water transportation system, not for the metro system. So we are left with clean development mechanism. So clean development mechanism is basically to or to make the metros more sustainable. It is a strategy for reducing the energy requirement, right? So reducing using lesser energy, or using more efficient infrastructure, right? So consuming lesser energy or requiring lesser energy in the first place, right? So with renewable systems, or having tools that will consume lesser energy, so that those are parts or techniques that will come under the clean development mechanism. So by using this clean development mechanism, so metro systems can become more environmentally friendly and sustainable, right? So in the DMRC case, we looked at several examples, right? So how the ventilation systems, during the cold and the hot weathers, so they work differently to conserve energy, as it is necessary, right? So using the solar panels and so on. So we looked at several, examples in the DMRC case that comes under this clean development mechanism case to reduce the energy requirement. So the right option is B, that makes the metros more sustainable. Okay, question number 13 is Dash is the sustainability rating system for airports developed by the US Green Building Council. The options are BRIAM, NAAC, LEED, and Envision. Okay, we have one vote for A, one for C. Any other answers? Okay, so the right answer is option C. It is LEED. Right? So we already discussed about the different rating systems in all the previous questions, where I said like, so BRIAM is developed in the UK. So LEED was the one developed by the US Green Building Council, right? So here question also asks which is the one that is created by the US Green Building Council. So it is D. So Envision also I said it is from US but not from the US Green Building Council. It's from other organizations. So NAAC is from India. It's not really a sustainability rating system, but it is for assessing higher educational institutions in the country, right? So the right answer is option C. It is LEED. Okay, question number 14 is dash is also known as the West Coast Canal in India. So options are National Waterway 1, National Waterway 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we have one more for B, one for C. Any other answers? Right. So the right answer is option C. It is National Waterway number 3. Right. So we already looked at National Waterway 2. Right. So we saw this was in Brahmaputra River, right? So in the northeast, right? So therefore, clearly it cannot be in the west coast, right? So National Waterway 3, so this is in Kerala, right? So this is called the West Coast Canal in India, right? So this is also one of the longest, right? So not the longest, but one of the longest, right? Again, important for ferrying people, goods, also fishing activities take place, right? So in this waterway 3 is called the West Coast Canal, right? So because it is along the west coast of India. Okay, question number 15 is according to the concept of sustainable transportation systems, how much priority should be given to public transport, walking, and non motorized vehicles compared to other modes? So the options are lowest, highest, equal, and does not matter. Vote for C. Any other answers? Okay. So the right answer is option B. It is highest. Okay. So here we are talking about prioritizing, right? So priority for two groups of transportation, right? So on one hand we have public transport plus non-motorized transport, right? So on the other side we have the other modes, the private modes, right? So we have to decide whether which group gets higher priority, right? So how do we decide who gets higher priority? So here we are talking about in the context of sustainable transport systems. So whichever group has higher sustainability, right? So whichever group provides higher sustainability, so that group should get the higher priority, right? So if you look at sustainability aspect, so public transport plus non-motorized transport will win, right? So because they contribute to lower emissions, right? So lower energy requirement, right? So fuel usage will be less, right? So lower pollutions. So overall, in all aspects, right? So we also see from NMTs we'll have improved safety, health benefits and so on. So it wins in lot of the criteria that we'll have for the sustainable from the sustainability point of view. So therefore the PT plus non-motorized transport priority should be greater, right? So than the other modes. So therefore this group should have the highest priority, right? So we should develop these or focus our attention on these modes so that we'll have a better sustainable transport system, right? So therefore the right option is B. Question number 16 is the vessels used for transporting wheeled cargo such as cars, motorcycles and other vehicles through the inland waterways are called dash. The options are Marks, Triple E class, Ro-Ro vessels, dry bulk cargo and none of these. There is one more for B. Any other answers? Okay, so the right answer is option B. It is ro-ro vessels. Okay, so here we are talking about transporting wheeled cargo, right, so through inland waterways, right? So this ro-ro vessels. So these are the category of vehicles that we use, to transport wheeled cargo. So basically, for when we want to transport, these, huge number of cars, motorcycles, other vehicles, right? So this is a very cost-effective solution, right? So why? Because so this ro-ro stands for, roll on, roll off, right? So basically they have ramps, right? So through these ramps, the vehicles that we are transporting, so they can be, rolled onto the vehicle, and also at the destination they can be rolled off of this vessels, right? So under their own power, right? So we need not use external cranes or anything to, move them, right? So vehicles under their own power can be, taken in and taken out of this vessel. So this is a cost-effective solution, right? So and also this can carry a lot of these vehicles again through the waterways. So also very cost-effective, right? So this roll-on, roll-off vehicles are the ro-ro vessels for short. Right, so these are what we use for transporting the wheel cargo. Therefore, the right answer is B. It is ro-ro vessels. Question number 17 is the first metro rail system in the world to earn carbon credits for reducing the GHG emissions is dash. Options are Tokyo Metro in Japan, Shanghai Metro, China, Delhi Metro in India, and Seoul Metro in South Korea. We have one more for C. Any other answers? All right. So the right option is option C. It is Delhi Metro. Right. So here again we are looking at uh, earning carbon credits for GHG emissions. So what does this mean? So we talked about the concept of carbon neutral, right? So carbon neutrality or net zero emissions, right? So it is associated with that concept. So when you are reducing your GHG emissions, right? So if you are saving more, which means that for that you can earn this carbon credits, right? So if you are saving more than you are emitting, right? So through your other offsetting activities, right? So in that case, you can earn carbon credits for the amount of carbon emissions that is being saved, right? So which means, and this carbon credit can be transferred, right? So from one organization to the other, so they can buy this carbon credits, which means that. Right, so you are the savings are done by somebody else, right? So if you are purchasing, so A is purchasing, buys carbon credits from B, another organization, which means that for the emissions, that is released by A, right? So B is doing the offsetting, right? So the savings are coming from B for the emissions that are released by A. So when A is buying the carbon credits from B, right? So overall, what will this do is basically we are making sure that overall, right? So in the from the whole ecosystem, so we are being net zero, right? So when somebody emits, but somebody else, takes steps to counter that emission, right? So overall, we'll have reduced emissions into the atmosphere, right? So that's why how this carbon credit system works, right? So this can be transferred between organizations. So this carbon credit will be given when you are reducing your emissions, and this was done by Delhi Metro, the first metro system to earn this carbon credits. Okay, so right option is C. So question number 18 is taxiway is part of the landside area of airports. We have to say whether this statement is true or false. We have one vote for A, two votes for A, that it is true. Any other answers? All right. So right answer is the option B, that the given statement is false. Okay, because right, so if you look at an airport, you can roughly divide it into two halves. So one is the one side is the air side, the other side is the land side, right? So on the land side, we have the main terminal building, right? So this is where people, come, right, and they board the plane, right, and also disembark and leave. So that is the terminal building. So that comes on the land side, and anything apart from it, right? So all the facilities that are there for energy generation, waste processing, the parking facilities, wastewater treatment. So all of these comes under the land side of the airport, right? On the air side, so we have four major things. So one is the runway. So you would have guessed this. So the taxiway. So this is what we were talking about in the question, right? So taxiway, the apron, and the gate, right? So the gate is what connects the terminal with the aircraft's location where it is parked, right? So that is called the apron, right? So that's where the aircraft the maintenance is happening, and also the boarding deboarding happens, right? So and then the taxiway is what connects the apron and the runway, right? So from the parking, so the aircraft has to come to the runway to take off and to take off, right? So the connection between these two is provided by this way called taxiway, right? So, and then we have the runway. So all these four components, so they come under the air side of the airport, right? So everything else is on the land side. So but the question said taxiway is part of the land side area, right? So but it is not. It is part of the air side. Therefore, the given statement is false. Okay, question number 19 is which among the following is the oldest sustainability rating system for airports? Options are HQE, LEED, ParkSmart, and DGNB. We have one vote for C. Any other answers? Right. So right, our answer is option B. It is the lead rating system. Okay. So the lead rating system is the oldest, right? So it's not only oldest, also one of the most popular rating systems for sustainability rating of buildings. Right? So it is applicable for airports, right? So this was established in the 1990s, right? So in the early 1990s, around 93 to 94. So that's when this was first introduced, right? So this is one of the oldest among all the other sustainability rating systems, right? So as we already see, it was developed in the US by the Green Building Council. Okay, question number 20 is which of the following is not a principle of green shipping? So the options are reducing air emissions, reducing fuel consumption, reducing noise pollution, and increasing ship speeds. Okay, we have one more for C, one for D. Any other answers? Alright, so the right answer is option D. It is increasing the ship speeds, right? So here we are talking that is which is not a principle of the green shipping, right? So what is green shipping? So basically, green shipping simply it is all the practices, for a sustainable maritime transport, right? So it's a concept which relates to lowering the energy requirements or resource consumption, and also improving the sustainability aspect of the water transport system, right? So that's the green shipping concept. So which is not a principle of it. So anything that is against the sustainability aspect, so that will not be part of the green shipping principle. So A, B, and C. So these are very much part of what we are trying to do when we are trying to achieve a sustainable transport system, right? So we have to reduce air emissions, fuel consumption, and noise pollution, right? So these are also applicable in the green shipping concept as well, right? So whereas increasing ship speed, so to increase the ship speed, so which means it will actually be against the second one, which is to reduce the fuel consumption, right? So increasing the ship speed will lead to increasing the fuel consumption, right? So therefore, D will not be part of the green shipping practice. Okay, question number 21 is the per capita annual vehicle kilometers is dash when the percentage of non-motorized commute trips is high. So the options are high, low, unaffected, and very high. Okay, we have one more for A. Any other answers? Right. So right option is option B. It is low. Okay. So similar. This is similar to the trend that we saw, with respect to the traffic fatalities and the share of NMPs, right? So here we are looking at the per capita annual kilometers traveled on the y-axis against the percentage non-motorized commute trips, right? So again, from different locations, what we see is that there is a negative trend or a negative relationship between these two quantities, right? So when most of the trips are using the are used are carried out through non-motorized modes, so the total the annual vehicle kilometers, right? So which is the total amount of travel that is done in a year, right, per person on an average will also be lower. So why is this? Because with non-motorized modes, so you will not be able to travel longer distances, right? So which means the non-motorized trips will be for relatively shorter distances. Atia, do you have a question? Okay, so when so relatively the non-motorized trips will have a shorter length compared to motorized trips using motorized mode, right? So because you simply cannot travel longer distances through non-motorized modes, right? So there are limitations. So if most of the trips are going through this non-motorized mode, what can we say? So relatively, the total amount of travel will also be lower, right? So because all these non-motorized trips will be of shorter lengths, right? So relatively, right? So when this shorter trips is making up the majority of your overall trips, so which means that the total distance travel will also be coming down, right? So for this to happen, again, we need to have a good land use planning, right? So a lot of so with mixed land uses, so we can do multiple activities at a location, right? So you don't have to travel too much, right? So again, if there are multiple city centers, again that will also reduce the amount of travel, which will encourage this NMTs, right? So that's why we see that as the percentage of the non-motorized commute trips goes up, the overall trips travel will also come down. All right, so therefore the right relationship is that it is low. So what is low? The per capita annual vehicle kilometers will be low when the percentage of non-motorized commute trips is high. Okay, question number 22 is which certification is provided if a building scores 60 points in the LEED system? The options are LEED certified, LEED silver, LEED gold, and LEED platinum. Any answers? Okay, we have one more for the lead goal. Okay, so let's take a look at the answer. So right answer is option C. It is lead goal. Right. So as I was mentioning earlier, it is a lead is a four-tier certification system, which means there are four categories or four levels. That a building in which a building may come under. Right. So basically, in this lead rating system, so you'll have multiple categories or multiple criteria based on which this assessment will go on. Right. So it will look at aspects on the energy consumption, again the water consumption, the waste disposal, the indoor air quality, and so on. So, and based on these different criteria, the points will be awarded for a building, right? So, how well all these different aspects are being taken care of, right? So, if it is scoring between 40 and 49 points, then it is called lead certified, right? And this is the least among the four. Then, if it goes 50 to 59, then we'll give lead silver, right? Then 60 to 79, lead gold, and if it is 80 plus, then I will give a lead platinum certification, right? So here we are looking at a point of 60, right? So 60 means it comes under the lead gold certification, right? So it is at the lower end of the lead gold certification points. Okay. Therefore, C is the right answer. The question 23 is, which of the following is not a benefit of inland water transport for sustainable transportation? So the options are, it is a low emission mode of transport, it is a fuel efficient mode of transport, it can carry large volumes of cargo, and it can damage the fragile ecosystems. Okay, we have one more for D. Okay, any other answers? All right. So the right answer is option D, that it can damage fragile ecosystems. Right. So that is the disadvantage of the inland waterfront. right? So here we know that it is a low emission transport mode, right? So relatively compared to roadways, railways and airways. So the inland waterway is one of the best in terms of the when it comes to emission, right? And also in terms of fuel efficiency. So this requires the least amount of fuel again with respect to the amount of cargo that it can carry. So it can carry relatively large volumes for the same amount of fuel that we will use for the other modes, right? So that fuel efficiency is a big plus of the inland water transport, whereas D is the negative point, right? So it can damage fragile ecosystems. So what does this mean? So again, as we saw in the case of water transport, where this this ballast water creates damages to the local environment, right? So by releasing the microorganisms from one location to the other, so similar effects can be observed in the inland water transport as well, right? So but we may not see the exact impact because of the ballast water, but other damages to the ecosystem. So for example, this again requires building ports and docks, right? So because we need some locations for transferring loading or unloading the cargo, right? So that can damage the land use in that particular local region. And also the operation of this inland water transport can lead to erosions along the banks of the river, right? So it can lead to flooding, right? So over a period of time, right? So if we did not take adequate measures to counter these, so it can lead to such environmental effects, right? So therefore this is not a benefit from the inland water transport system, right? So it's not like everything is good with this. There are issues as well that we need to properly take care of, right? So therefore D is the right answer. Okay, so with that we are coming to the end of week number 11. If you have any questions or doubts, you can ask. Okay, thank you. So there are no questions, so we can wrap up the session for today here. So again, thank you for attending. So we'll meet again next Sunday between 4 and 6 p.m. Okay, so thank you.